Not a very popular theme to talk about, but it's appropriate for the children, especially. In fact, I was invited with Jackie and Dan to speak to the children over there on the 10th in the evening, sometime after the service, on this subject. So I said, as I was prepared, I may as well bring it today. Why don't we observe Christmas?
Pastor Joe,
Yes.
before we start, I just had a little funny anecdote. So, yesterday when I picked Isabella up from school, we were talking and she said, well, there was a guy dressed like Santa Claus walking around the school today. And he was just going around saying, ho, 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 hi to all the kids. And she goes, and I was about to go into the bathroom and he was walking on the hallway. And he said, well, hello there. And Isabella said, I said to him, I don't celebrate Christmas. And then the guy goes, oh, okay. And he just walked away.
And it's interesting that a child her age still has that conviction so young, Little back. Did you have some?
I just wanted to see if I can add a little bit after you're done. I have a few things
Yeah,
to
sure.
say about that.
Absolutely. Okay, Gilbert wants to speak a little bit afterwards. He's been dying to speak for a while, and we'll give you an opportunity. I even talked to Jonathan and Michael.
It's about this.
Oh, about this. Okay. And that's okay. I mean, it's probably better to give you some guys, prepare a time for you so that you can have as much time as you need. But today I want to talk about this. We don't observe Christmas. But why is that? I was looking at, usually you don't use the King James Version. I try to stay away from that because it's a lot of these and thous and saith and things like that. But this one told it like it was. And I kept looking at all the other ones, even the New King James. They had very politically correct terms. I'll read it first and I'll explain what I mean by that. Jeremiah 10:2 says, thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Okay, the reason I say that is because you look at your NIV, New King James, and anything you got, they don't call them heathens. They call them the way of the nation, or the way of the people. That was not the intent of that word at all. Heathens are people that are non-believers or they don't really worship the Lord. Heathens are people that probably are pagan in so many ways. And yet, the other terms are used to refer to them as people, nations, and the rest of the people and so forth. But I want to tell it like it is, I used to tell my family, I was talking to Stan about it before, to tell my family about this, that I think the reason I became an educator is because I do a lot of research, and I like to find out and study why things are a certain way, and I rethink things, So I did a study on Christmas, and I realized it was off. Yeah, I just started going to the Church of God, and I realized it's very pagan. It's very pagan. And so I tried to explain that to my family, that we were not going to be going over there, and Martha and I got married, and we told them, we're not going to do this Christmas business with you guys. They were very upset with us. But anyway, things like this are going to eventually come between you and the people you love sometimes, And what can we do about that, You have to go with your conscience and do the very best that you can. So, what does the Bible say about the Christmas tree, for example? So, because we have children, I'm going to try to explain it in a way they can grasp. Because I'm sure mom and dad told them a lot of things like this. But they didn't have all the verses or all the background that I'm going to show you here. Jeremiah 10:3-5 says their ways are futile and foolish. That means they're wasting their time. They are not honoring God or Christ by this. They cut down a tree, and a craftsman carves an idol. They decorate it with gold and silver. Now, nobody carves little idols for this, but when they first started doing these trees and bringing them inside the home, they would put little things to hang on there. They could decorate it with gold and silver. I think today they use tinsel, and like even way back when we were kids, and they were trying to do that in my home. They used like silver little streamers and things like that, and some of them were silver and gold. So that's what I was envisioning when I saw that. And they fastened it with a hammer and nail so it won't fall over. And I remember Dad did that. He got 2 boards in the bottom, and he would put the tree on top, and then he would hammer it towards the bottom so that it would have a little stand, and it wouldn't fall over. So this is what the Bible is saying about that. So some of this is really according to their time, but it's also about what's coming in the future, which is nowadays. And so it says, their gods are like helpless scarecrows in a cucumber field. They cannot speak, and they need to be carried because they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of such gods, for they can neither harm you nor do you any good. So what the Bible is saying, they're not doing anybody any good, but don't be afraid of that stuff. Don't worry about it. Don't get scared about it. It doesn't do you any harm, and it doesn't do you any good, but he's telling you not to take part in it. We don't have Christmas trees in Church of God homes, and we never did. And in fact, my kids have never celebrated Christmas, And we had 3 kids, but the thing is that this is the basis for it, and so we're going to be discussing. This is where it first starts, and you might say, well, where did they come up with this tree business? What were they even doing that? There's a reason for that. Okay, and so this little tree right there. It says the aspects of German American Christmas, including the tree, were considered pagans by the Puritans in New England and shunned them until about 1875. So here's what it's telling us is that when the Puritans came to America from England, they didn't want to do Christmas trees because they knew it was pagan. Back then in 1875, they already knew it was wrong to do it. And later on, of course, they just started doing it. And believe it or not, Christmas was not even celebrated in America for many years, hundreds of years after it was founded. But you know what happened? It's the money, okay? It's always about the money. They will celebrate anything that's going to bring the stores more money. But back then, they didn't care about money. They were just trying to survive. It is generally acknowledged that the Christmas tree is of German origin. In the pre-Christian era, the oak was a sacred tree for the Germanic peoples. So this was an oak tree. But back in our day, rather in our day today, they're using fir trees, I guess it is, right? And I still remember when they used to put up the tree when we were kids. By the way, we never got any presents, so I didn't look forward to it because we were so poor, we never got any presents. We got a tree, and that was about it. We went, okay, now what? So the problem is, I was very allergic to fir trees. I started sneezing and coughing, and I was terrible. I felt awful. And my sisters and my brother, they thought I was making it up. Oh, there you go. You got to spoil the whole thing, don't you? You're just making it up. No, I'm really allergic to that. And even now, you can hear my voice is a little bit off. I think we got some trees out there like that, some evergreen trees. So they affect me when I'm over here. Okay, But we did have other people in other countries taking a tree and they would bring it into the house to worship it and part of their worship. The Germans started doing that too, but for different reasons. So I looked up a book called We Wish You a Merry Nimrod. Believe it or not, that's a funny name. That really got my attention. Christopher C. Warren wrote it. He was talking about the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah. And that's what Stan was just talking about a minute ago, right? Remember that he's the one that saw his father without any clothes, and he was drunk and the whole bit, and he made fun of him, and he became a Ham because of it. And but he was the son of Noah, and he made fun of Noah. But he was also the father of Nimrod. Okay, so what does Nimrod have to do with a tree? Okay, it was Nimrod who built the original Tower of Babel, the first city of Babylon, Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, and many other commercial and pagan religious centers were in Babylon. So when you think about Babylon today in America, what do you think about? Anybody have any ideas?
Very commercialized. It's very for profit.
Well, yeah, but what do you think about what state would you think would be like that?
A moral state, like morally.
Yeah.
Very poor morally state.
Could be Washington politically, maybe, they got a lot of pagan ideas, but so does California. A lot of Californian friends we have, they always complain about what they're doing over there, and I say, what are you doing over there? Come over here, this is ridiculous. But in Babylon or Nineveh, they had the capital of Assyria, which was very, very pagan and commercial. And Nimrod was so evil that he married his own mother, Semiramis. And if you think about it, though, people were intermarrying back then, but not between mother and son. But they had blood relatives. A lot of first cousins were getting married. I was just reading this morning in the book of Exodus where, one of Moses' sons got married to his aunt, So I thought, okay, that was weird, but they just went on. So that part is not uncommon back then. And just to explain it, I mean, we can't be married like that anymore. But the DNA was so different back then that intermarrying back then was not a big problem. Today, if you do that, you'll probably get a lot of bad, unhealthy children. But Nimrod married his own mom. In fact, she loved him, adored him more than the mother should. So keep your mind on that, okay? So after Nimrod's untimely death, Semiramis, which is the mother, and this is a little odd because it kind of reminds me of the fact that Stan was talking about, was that sometimes the offspring would die before the parents, and we were saying that some people, some grandparents would lose their grandkids. They would die before them because after the flood, the lifespan was shorter. We don't know for sure why he died. There's a lot of different legends about that, but he did die ahead of his time. And Semiramis established a false messiah, or what they call an anti-God doctrine, which was adopted by many pagan religions. Okay, so here's the Christmas tree comes in. And according to their religion or their doctrine, they believe that a full-grown evergreen tree would spring up overnight from a dead tree stump, which would symbolize the springing forth unto new life of the dead Nimrod. So when she was worshiping her son and the other people of that religion she established, they would worship the Christmas tree. Well, but they didn't call it a Christmas tree. It was the Nimrod tree, okay? But it was an evergreen tree, just like the one they have today. And so you might say, well, that might be a coincidence, right? It might be a coincidence, but here's the catch. On each anniversary of his birth that Nimrod had before, he died, but they still celebrated his birthday. She claimed that Nimrod would visit the evergreen tree and leave gifts on it. So when people would go out in the morning, there would be gifts around the tree. And she would say these came from Nimrod. They're more than likely she had people that she controlled, and she made them get presents and put them together. I don't know how they wrapped them up or whatever, but they put them under the tree, and kids would go out there and get it. See, so that's where they came from. That. So you need to understand why all of these things are pagan. And so the putting the tree gifts under the tree. If you ask people about it, why do they put gifts under the tree? They don't know. They don't know. In fact, they'll probably make something up. They'll just say, "Oh, it's because we just want to put it there for our kids so they could find it in the morning and they get all surprised and everything, But that's not the reason for it. So but remember I told you that every year on the birthday of Nimrod, they would have this tree and they would put gifts under it. And is it a coincidence or not? December the 25th is the birthday of Nimrod. Okay? How in the world can you worship Yeshua or Christ or Jesus if you like? How can you worship him on the day of Nimrod? And this is the reason why the Bible says you do not honor God by what you're doing. You're not doing anybody any good at all. And is it a coincidence the 25th of December? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's more than a coincidence because there's a lot of other things that started happening in December. And they all moved it together because there was already an established holiday. And the World Book Encyclopedia says some of Santa Claus's characteristics date back many centuries. So we're going to bring in Santa Claus now. Okay? The belief that Santa enters the house through the chimney, I don't see how he can because he's supposed to be a fat guy. He would get stuck up there, wouldn't he? Is developed from an Old Norse legend. The Norse believed that the goddess Hertha appeared in the fireplace and brought good luck to the home. I know, right? And you would think she would get burned up or something, but no. Unless she was a ghost or something. Children are taught through it that he has many characteristics that Santa Claus of God. He is omniscient. That means he knows everything. What is this little? Okay, I know you don't sing that song, but we heard it, and you're thinking about it in your head already, aren't you? He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been good or bad. He knows everything. He is like God. He is omniscient. So, and he knows when you've been bad or good. Omnipresent. That's where God is, right? God is everywhere. Okay, God is here today. God is, Yahweh is here today. But the question is, why do we say Santa Claus is able to send presents all over the world? And Martha and I don't know if you'll ever see this, but when they put on the weather, they tell you, oh, by the way, let's pause for a moment, and we're going to show you where Santa is right now.
Oh, yeah.
And they put a map, and he's flying really slow. How does he cover all those houses in a short time? He must be pretty rich, too. But then he's got a bunch of elves to help him, I guess.
He has to be faster than Flash.
I don't know how he's supposed to do that, So he has the qualities of God. So in a way, he's very pagan also. He's like an idol. Let's see. Oops. The AustralianMedia.com family network says St. Nicholas was a priest who later became a bishop. He was also a rich person. So this is where they call him Saint Nick. Okay? So Santa Claus and Saint Nick don't sound like they go together, but they're connected. So this guy in this legend named Saint Nicholas was a priest. He traveled the country helping people, giving gifts of money and other presents. Saint Nick did not like to be seen when he gave away presents, so the children of the day were told to go to sleep quickly or he would not come. You see how they're pulling in all the different things? Now, I know the children here don't know all these things, but you should know, because maybe they're going to grow up and have kids of their own and they're going to say, why don't we do this? Well, this is why we don't do this. Or if they have friends in school or maybe friends in the neighborhood and they'll ask them, why aren't you doing this? Well, because the Bible says this, and this is what we know about these things, you know. This is why we need to tell them. It's not because, you know, we're trying to undo anything. It's simply to help them to be informed why we do the things that we do. Then there's the little part about the mistletoe. Anybody heard about the mistletoe? They put a mistletoe up in some place, and maybe like in the door, and when you come in, you have to kiss that person who's under the mistletoe, even if you don't like them. Mistletoe by Sarah Williams. Roman worshippers of Mithra, the Persian sun god, also celebrated the winter solstice as the nativity or birth of the sun.
What is the mistletoe, by the way?
Oh, that is part of their worship of this person, this Roman god called Mithra, the Persian sun god, and they included that. Okay, so what has happened with Christmas, December the 25th, they bring all these things in, you see, from different directions, different pagan things. So what does mistletoe have to do with Christmas? Nothing. But they just borrowed it because it looked pretty cool, you know?
Do you have a picture of mistletoe?
I don't know. Well, I think I might in a little bit. In ancient Rome and Babylon, this festival involved a wild parties and orgies, and we won't describe what that is, that began with an innocent kiss underneath the mistletoe, leading to justification of all sorts of perverted behavior. So it kind of looks like that. It has like little white round pellets on it, you know, like little balls on there, like little white berries. I don't even think they're good to eat for anybody.
Pastor Joe.
Yes. Or have you eaten some?
It's even worse, because I'm reading like a little article that supports you and gives a little bit more detail, and it says that mistletoe was the most sacred plant of the Druids, so it was given great reverence, because mistletoe grows on the venerated oak tree. The custom of kissing under the mistletoe comes from the ancient idea that mistletoe is the oak's genitals, and so it was believed that an embrace under its glistening berries was sure guarantee of a fruitful union. So it's even worse.
There is a lot to this stuff, and I'm just picking little parts of it because we would stay here all day. You know what I mean? But you're right, Chance. There's a lot more to it, and it's worse than we know. But I just wanted you to know where they brought these things in, so that if you see them in a home or something, you can say, by the way, you know where this comes from? And they'll say, I don't know, but it's what we do. It's a custom. And people are really into custom, right? And culture. And, well, because we've always done it like that, you know. And let's talk about the gift giving again. I already explained to you that there was gifts that were laid underneath the evergreen trees, the fir trees, because that's what Nimrod was doing, supposedly. But they brought in some more stuff to it. So you ask a Christian, why they're doing it, this is what they will tell you. They believe that the Magi who brought gifts to the Christ child, and some of this stuff was very practical, you know. Uh, in what is it? Myrrh and frankincense and oils and things like that. But you know what I tell them when they say, "Oh, they all brought gifts to Jesus because you know he was the baby and everything," and then I would ask them, and they would get them, which would get them upset. I would ask them, I mean, why are you giving them to each other? The Bible, the story of the Magi, they didn't give gifts to each other. Can you imagine going up to the manger and giving gifts to each other? You know, it doesn't make any sense. So that got kind of bent out of shape there. The truth is, the 25th already marked the date of the Roman pagan ritual of exchanging small gifts called the return of the sun. So that's really why they're doing it. The exchanging of the gifts. And as I mentioned before, we didn't have any money, so we didn't exchange any gifts at all. But except my sisters, they would put stuff in little boxes or something and exchange them to each other, you know. And then they gave them back to each other afterwards. I don't know. I never participated in that. But anyway, the point is that they were already doing it for a different ritual that they brought in. And that was the return of the sun. So they gave each other little gifts, had nothing to do with the Magi at all. Early Christians did not practice gift giving because they did not want their religion to be associated with the pagan festivals or practices. So you see, they were not giving the gifts because they were going to say, oh, you're doing that because of Christmas. No, we're doing this because of whatever. I think we need to do a study, and maybe Stan will probably do it because he's more well versed on the festivals and the feasts about Hanukkah or Hanukkah. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
There's a great teaching on it that Michael wanted us to introduce to you. That the previous congregation we were going to, one of the gentlemen there had a great teaching on the significance of Hanukkah. It's also prophetic. It's not just something that was Maccabees.
I think that's pretty much what Stan was saying before. What it symbolizes, what these feasts symbolize and whatever they stand for are significant. And the thing that has really pulled me into the idea behind it is the fact that if they are no longer valid, why will we be doing it in the next kingdom? You know what I mean? That's what I'm kind of concerned about. But Church of God has not kept the feast, and I remember Brother Jerry Camaro would go to a lot of these, ministerial consults, and he would argue all day with them. And they would just tell him to sit down and be quiet. That's enough of that. They didn't want to hear it. He wanted to incorporate it in there, and it's one of the reasons that we're just one of the many reasons we've gotten away from being a full membership of the Church of God. We are associated with them, but we are independent because we want to be able to do those things if we want to, you know. But we don't force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. But anyway, so they get so let me ask this, maybe Stan or Jonathan can answer it. Do they give gifts on Hanukkah? Do they give each other gifts on Hanukkah?
The original intent of Hanukkah, no. You're not.
Okay, because I heard some people do.
Yeah, they just try to seem like part of the customs of modern day things. So giving gifts for 8 nights, you give one gift every night. That's a modern custom. But the original intent of Hanukkah was not to exchange gifts of any kind.
Which is what would explain why here, what I read, that they didn't want to do that. Because they didn't want to make it associated with pagan festivals, like Christmas, for example. In the Middle Ages, marked the point at which gift giving became part of the Christian Christmas celebrations. Kings demanded gifts from their subjects, and common people exchanged gifts with one another. Probably not anything big, but the kings back in the Middle Ages, yeah, they wanted something. Saint Nick Day was December the 6th. Remember, St. Nicholas was a priest. He was a good guy. You know, I think he had good intentions, you know, to give poor kids things. But they started celebrating his day on December the 6th, the St. Nicholas Day. They began gift giving for children. But that was not part of Christian worship at all. But later on, it was incorporated into it. Later, Christians moved the day to the 25th to celebrate St. Nicholas Day. Happy Nimrod Day already, right? And there's a couple more that we're going to look at too that are brought into the 25th. Later, Christians moved the day to the 25th to bring in the pagans into their service. And then there's the Christmas carols, okay? If you do send your children to school, by the way, they will have them sing Christmas carols at school. You know,
I told her teachers at her school a short answer. I said, "Oh, we're Jewish. That's the short answer."
Oh, okay.
We observe Jewish observances, so we don't have to go into the whole turning into like a.
No, that's the right approach. I never tell anybody. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. This one lady I work with, another teacher, she says, Did you get your wife for Christmas presents? So the long answer, well, we don't believe in that, and none of that. So I said, I gave her all the gifts she's going to get. And then they go, no, but I mean the Christmas presents. Did you give her the Christmas presents? Well, and I kept trying to get away from that, but she wouldn't stop. So eventually I gave her the short version of this, and she was very mad at me. I said, what did you get mad at me? You're the one that asked me, so I don't do that, you know. In fact, if I bought her a Christmas present, she'd probably throw it at me or something, you know. She's not used to that, you know. And I've gotten unused to it myself. If I need something, I'll just go buy it anyway. So the custom of singing Christmas carols is said to have come from the 13th century Italy. See, we got Romans, we got Germans, we got Druids, we got Hebrews, we got all kinds of people coming, bringing stuff together and bringing it into the same celebration. The custom of singing Christmas carols is said to have come from the 13th century of Italy, where a man named Saint Francis of Assisi led songs of praise. It is very bad luck, they say, to send carolers away empty-handed. It is customary to offer them food and drink or maybe a little money. I don't see that here anymore. When I was growing up, they did that. I think they've gotten away from that. They would go from house to house, and they would be singing and singing. And you're supposed to give them something, you know, but of course they never came around our house because we were living in the poor section of town, and they knew that there was nothing there. It is also said to be unlucky if you sing Christmas carols at any other time. I haven't heard that before, but that's what it said in my research. If you sing Jingle Bells or something, or whatever that is, any time of the year other than the 25th, then it's bad luck. But if you put in the Christian radio today, you're probably going to hear about Christmas carols too. The K-Love will play a lot of those, right? So I wonder if they know that it's bad luck for them to be doing that. Or do they even care? So what about the lights? Let's talk about the lights. We're pointing to every little thing. And you know, most Christians that do celebrate Christmas, they don't realize why they do what they do. Lights are traced back to the ancient practice of lighting Christmas candles and fires. Ancient Norse would keep a bonfire blazing during the Yule season. Romans fastened candles to trees. Can you imagine a fir tree that is very flammable? You're putting a candle on it? Wow, that is crazy. So they fastened candles to the trees during the Saturnalia as symbols of the sun's return to the earth. Throughout that celebration, they also kept lamps burning in their homes to ward off evil spirits. and candles burning in their windows to call back the sun. I already did the Halloween thing, so some of you guys missed that one. But we'll do it every year. And there's some things, and I'll do this one next year if Lord willing I'm still here, or maybe I'll have somebody else do it from a different point of view. I don't know, but I think what has happened in the Church of God in a lot of Christian churches, they don't talk about stuff like that. I was always trying to bring that message in the previous church, and they said no, thank you. And now I think I know why. Throughout the celebration, they also kept lamps burning in their homes to ward off evil spirits. Are the evil spirits going to be scared off by lamps or lights? I don't think so. Now, isn't Hanukkah or Hanukkah, am I saying that right? Yes, Hanukkah, right? Did you all know that they also have a lot of lights too, right? The Jews also employ candles in their December celebration, Hanukkah. The Feast of Lights, and I don't want to talk too much about that because I think that we need to give it more time. It deserves more time as to why we do that. So they're borrowing that from the Jewish tradition too. The lighting of the candles, and later on they put in a bunch of other lights as well. And as early as AD 492, a day for candles, Candlemas Day. You see how they're bringing in all these different celebrations and put it all together. I don't like to badmouth any church, but the Catholic Church is very famous for that, of incorporating a lot of pagan customs and putting them all together as one thing. And I guess people were used to that, So AD 492, that's not long after the death of Christ, a few centuries later, and but they had Candlemas Day. The 8th-day Jewish celebration known as Hanukkah or Chanukah, I never heard anybody call it Chanukah, have you? Commemorates a rededication during the 2nd century BC of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, where according to legend, Jews had risen up against their Greek-Syrian oppressors in the Maccabean revolt. Hanukkah, which means dedication in Hebrew, begins on the 25th of Kislev on the Hebrew calendar and usually falls in November or December. It kind of depends. So Hanukkah 2022 begins on the evening of Sunday, December the 18th. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's the best I could get to that. And ends on the evening of Monday, December 26th. So that's like a whole week there, right? And they really that's pretty serious stuff, It's 8 days, right? 8 days that coincide with, this revolt and the whole bit. And it makes sense, when you have a holiday because of some pagan person or a pagan god, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you do celebration like that, it means something, it has a purpose for it. So I'm assuming that maybe, I don't know if you feel like you need to have your children celebrate something on December with everybody else, but that would be the only one that I could think of that is worthwhile, but that's up with the parents, I guess. Was Christ born December 25th? Remember the story? He's out in a manger, he's out, and the shepherds are out there, and the stars are out, and it's very pretty, very comfortable out there. So could he possibly been born on December the 25th? And the answer is no. The Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible states, weather phenomena and climate conditions as pictured in the Bible correspond with conditions observed today. So in other words, the weather on December the 25th is the same like it is today, but probably up in the north someplace, not here. The temperature is in the area in Bethlehem in December averages 44 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius, but can drop to well below freezing, especially at night. So how do you have a baby out there in a manger December the 25th in freezing weather? And there was no room at the inn, right? That's the story. There was no room at the inn, so they could not stay in the house. So they wind up staying in this outside in a barn somewhere, with all the animals and everything. Now, this lady, Sarah Ruhin, is a chief of the Israeli Weather Service. She noted that the area has 3 months of frost, and it begins in December through January and February. Okay, 29 degrees Fahrenheit is the average temperature in December, and that's not possible for being out there, So I don't know where he was, but when he was born, but it was not at that month. Has anybody ever tried to calculate the birth of Christ, the true date?
It's said to be in the spring or summer.
What did you say, Gillen?
There is a calculation. I don't have it with me right now, but he according to this calculation, he was born on the Feast of Tabernacles, which depends again every year, that feast moves, but it's at the end of October or the middle of October.
Stan, did you come up with something like that?
Yes, that's commonly accepted. That makes sense that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because Feast of Tabernacles is all about that God with us.
Okay.
It makes sense.
I did a calculation as well. I thought it was maybe early October, and the reason I'm thinking that is because we look at John the Baptist. Remember, John the Baptist was born a certain time, and you can find out when he was born, and Mary was just expecting Jesus, right? And they said or I got it backwards. And so Mary's expecting as well. But they said that when Mary came, the child, John the Baptist, moved inside the mom. He was like real excited, inside the Elizabeth, I think it was, right? And so, and if you start going by that, there's different ways you can approach it. But if you start going with that, it's still in October somewhere, in the middle or something like that. But it's not December. But notice that it starts getting really cold in Israel in December, not in October. I have a feeling it might be kind of like it is here, a little bit. And look at this right now. We're in December, and it's not exactly very cold yet, but it will be a little bit later on, I think. Anyway, but maybe we'll have a discussion more about that, about the actual date. Snow is common for 2 or 3 days in Jerusalem, nearby Bethlehem in December and January. These were the winter months of increased precipitation in Christ's time too, when the roads became particularly unstable and people stayed mostly indoors. Note that at the time of Christ's birth, the shepherds tended their flocks in the fields at night, and that's not possible. They would have them brought in already because it's too cold. They would probably freeze to death, I guess, So I did some more research. In the Companion Bible, Appendix 179 says, shepherds with their flocks would not be found abiding in the open fields at night in December, also known as Tibet. There would be no pasturage at that time, and it was a custom then as it is now to withdraw the flocks during the month of Marcheshvan, October, November, from the open districts and house them for the winter. So already between October and November, they had, everything was indoors. So why are we even celebrating December 25th? Well, then we go to Macmillan Compact Encyclopedia that says, in the West, Christmas has been celebrated the 25th of December since 336 AD, 336 after the birth of Christ. Partly in order to replace the non-Christian sun worship on the same date. The new Encyclopedia Britannica states December the 25th is the birthday of Mithra, the Iranian god of light, and the day devoted to the invincible sun, as well as the day after Saturnalia. And it was adopted by the Roman Catholic Church as Christmas because the nativity of Christ to counteract the effects of these festivals. So they're bringing everything in. In fact, this is what we find that the Catholic Church decided to worship on Sunday instead of Saturday because they wanted to bring the sun worshipers in. See? And so they just combine everybody together, you know. But in a way, isn't that what the church is like today? They say, come as you are, you don't have to change, you can keep all your customs and ideas, and we'll accept you, we're all good. But what does Jesus say? What does Yeshua say? Except you be born again, you cannot see the kingdom of God. You have to change. You got to get rid of all your traditions and ideas. People don't want to change. And nobody talks about changing. They all talk about these warm feelings and all of that. You know, they don't want to, what is it, touchy-feely things, you know. Sometimes I get pretty stern sermons as well, but I don't know. People are not changing very much today. And this is a little bit off the subject here. This is a little bit off the subject, but there was this guy presented a video of a little girl, and she had a dream, and they said, she says, God is coming again real soon. She says, Jesus told me, she said, he told me he's coming real soon, and she said, and he asked me to bow him 3 times when I tell my family about it. So they were like blown away from that, you know. So is she a prophet of some kind? I don't know, but I'd like to believe that the Lord is going to finish these things soon because things are really getting out of hand. Now, the book called, so sometimes you're not going to find anything about Christmas in the Bible, you know. Otherwise, I would be quoting more verses. But I have some at the end. But so we got to go to some of these books here to find out what they're thinking. A Treasury of Christmas by Frank and Jamie Muir. They said 25th of December was a particularly good day for Christian festival celebrating new life because there were already several pagan festivals doing the same thing. So they dragged them all together. December the 25th. We know Yeshua was not born on that day. We know for a fact he wasn't. And they know too. And they said, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We just want to take a day to celebrate. No, in fact, nobody knows. And say, if you try really hard, you could find out. But they don't want to know. They don't want to change their ideas. The Romans honored their god Saturn between the 17th and the 23rd of December. Saturnalia was a festival in celebration of Rome's golden age, which all hoped that one day would return. They're waiting for the return of the golden age. Good luck with that. Many of the festivities become part of the traditional Christmas. When Christianity became the official religion of the Emperor Constantine in the early part of the 4th century AD, the pagan celebrations of the 25th stayed to become part of Christmas. According to this emperor, you know, you don't even know this guy, but he still has a big part of what people do today. My brother, you know, who's worked in retail for the longest time, that is to say he's a salesman, a jewelry salesman, he would say if you took away Christmas, he said, a lot of businesses will go under. Because everybody's running in the red. That means that they're broke. So that when they come to December the 25th, that's when they make all the money, and that's when they come out in the black again. So it is about the money. You know, they're not going to change that. So let's go to the Catholic dictionary. Catholics don't hide anything, by the way. They will tell you. They'll tell you everything. They'll put it all out there. The New Catholic Encyclopedia says the birth of Christ was assigned the date of the winter solstice, December the 25th, in the Julian calendar. January the 6th is in the Egyptian calendar because on this day, the sun begins its return to the northern skies, and the pagan devotees of Mithra celebrated the Dies Natalis Solis Invicta. I don't speak Latin, so. Birthday of the invincible son. So you see, it was celebrated not because they know he wasn't born that day, but they brought it in because all the pagans were celebrating that day and say, hey, can we join you guys? We're going to celebrate Christ. Christmas is therefore of Catholic origin and not of the Protestant origin. But here's the funny thing about it. The Protestants, they do whatever the Catholic Church says. And that's what, so what does a Protestant mean? Protestant means I'm getting away from the Catholics, I'm protesting against them, and I'm doing everything I do because I'm opposed to what they do. However, there are some things that I will keep and that I will not change. Okay? That's what the Protestants will say. Church of God is, and the Messianic churches are not Protestant churches because they are not founded on a protest. They are trying to keep as close to the Bible as possible. And you get into trouble with people in the world because of that. There's another book called Christmas and Its Customs. And yeah, there's a lot of information, but I'm just throwing as much as I can out there. By Christina Holes, tells us it was a policy of the early Roman Catholic Church to transform pagan festivals whenever possible, instead of trying to abolish them by giving ancient practice a Christian significance, to purify and preserve for the new faith. That's what they're doing. They took all those pagan things and they made it acceptable. They made it a religious thing. And they know it's that way, you know. And the Catholic Church says, we know we're the main church, the most important church, because after all, everybody does what we do. Well, not us. So they said, whatever seems innocent and deeply loved in the old was moved into the new. In the yet unconverted world of the 4th century, December the 25th was already a sacred day for thousands of people throughout the Roman Empire. It was the Dies Invictus Solis, the birthday of the unconquered son. They're already celebrating. You know, so the Catholics said, let's bring those guys in too. So let me conclude. People are not doing a Christmas in a way that is pleasing to God. It is not making him happy at all. And if you have to sacrifice your relationship with the world, or even your family, or your friends, then you have to ask yourself, is the Lord more important than those people? So you have to make that choice. And it's a hard choice to make. God or Yahweh considers it a vain custom because of the heathen foundation Christmas has. We must not condemn or judge people, though, who wish to observe this custom. I'm not going to go tell you off or nothing. I will try to lead you by example, and I will tell you why I do what I do, but I'm not going to judge you. Somebody will judge them. It's not us. Like Christ, we must teach people with love and patience for the purpose of helping and not to discourage people. It's mentioned to you, my family they still observe Christmas long after we stopped. But they stopped after a while too. They said, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. We're not going to do this anymore either. So nobody did anymore. So the answer to the question that we started off with, why don't we celebrate Christmas? Because it has a pagan foundation. That's what it is. But if